The reef lies silent in the morning glow, sunlight spilling through shallow tropical waters in golden sheets that dapple the coral floor. Crabs shuffle beneath sea fans, and damselfish dart among stony ridges, unaware that something lethal lurks just beyond a hollow crevice of calcified rock. The mantis shrimp doesn't move like a hunter, at least not in the way predators are supposed to. It's compact, armored, its eyes perched like turret scopes on independently swiveling stalks. There's no warning, no build-up, just a flicker of tension across its forelimbs, two folded clubs tucked like spring-loaded hammers beneath its face. And then the strike happens. The punch detonates in less than a millisecond. It's not a movement so much as a biomechanical explosion. The club rockets forward with the speed of a bullet fired from a handgun, up to 23 meters per second. What follows is more violent than the impact itself, a brief implosion in the water. A shockwave forms as the limb accelerates faster than the surrounding liquid can move, creating a pocket of vapor, a cavitation bubble, that collapses with a flash of light and a second, echoing burst of heat and force. This means the mantis shrimp hits its target twice, once with its club, and once more with the underwater sonic boom that follows. A crab, unaware, is the unlucky target this time. Its shell caves in before it even processes what's happened. For the mantis shrimp, this is just breakfast. It drags the stunned crustacean back into its lair with surgical calm and begins its methodical dismantling, one shard of chitin at a time. This creature, barely the size of a finger, is often called the most powerful predator relative to its body size on Earth. But raw power is only part of its story. Look closer, much closer, and its real superpower reveals itself not in the limb, but in the eye. The eyes of the mantis shrimp are a pair of rotating mysteries, each capable of moving independently, each structured to process information in ways humans can barely imagine. Where the human eye uses 3 types of color receptors, red, green, and blue, the mantis shrimp can have up to 16. This includes the ability to detect ultraviolet light, polarized light, and even circularly polarized light, which no other known animal sees. To us, the reef is a blur of soft turquoise and bright orange. To the mantis shrimp, it's a kaleidoscopic battlefield. Every scale, reflection, and glint contains coded information. Which creatures are injured, which are ripe for ambush, which are threatening, and which are bluffing. Their eyes don't just perceive the reef, they decrypt it, frame by frame, with a kind of vision that approaches biological radar. But for all this alien brilliance, mantis shrimp are not invincible. There are over 450 known species, ranging from smashers like this one, equipped with clubbed forearms for breaking shells, to spearers, whose limbs are fashioned into barbed spikes for impaling soft-bodied prey like fish and worms. Smashers dominate rocky substrates and coral rubble, while spearers prefer burrows in sandy bottoms where they lie in wait like biological bear traps. Both types are solitary, territorial, and armed with enough force to crack aquarium glass when provoked. In nature's arms race, mantis shrimp have become weapons of precision. Their clubs are not mere bones or muscles, but composite materials engineered by evolution. Layers of chitin and mineral-rich material form a helicoidal pattern, essentially a natural shock-absorbing spiral, which prevents the club from shattering during repeated use. Scientists studying this design have been inspired to mimic it in creating more durable materials for human use, from aerospace panels to military armor. These shrimp don't roam aimlessly. They are ambush predators with memory and intent. Studies show that some species can recognize individual neighbors and even engage in ritualized combat to avoid lethal outcomes. When disputes arise over burrows, 2 males may square off, each hammering its club against the other's armored tail in rhythmic duels. The one who breaks formation or flinches first loses the territory. And yet, their ecological role is often overlooked. Mantis shrimp help regulate reef communities by targeting overabundant crustaceans and mollusks, breaking apart shells that would otherwise litter the reef in impenetrable clusters. Their diet is varied but precise: snails, hermit crabs, shrimp, sometimes even small fish. And in consuming these, they create ecological room for other species to move, feed, and colonize. In a way, their violence is maintenance, a cleanup operation with fists. There is an irony here. The mantis shrimp, so perfectly suited to its niche, is also extremely sensitive to environmental disruption. Reef destruction, acidification, and overfishing threaten not only their prey base, but the very rubble beds and burrows they rely on for hunting and breeding. They're often bycatch in trawl fisheries, discarded without a second thought. For a creature capable of punching through a snail shell, the greatest threat is not a tougher opponent, but a changing world. And yet, despite their challenges, mantis shrimp continue to thrive where coral fragments and sedimentary layers give them cover. They're survivors, brawlers, and inventors all in one. Watching them is like witnessing an evolutionary paradox. How something so small can embody such raw, focused power, and how, in the grand theatre of reef life, it's not the biggest creature that rules, but the one with the deadliest idea. In the silence that follows the kill, the shrimp cleans its clubs, resets its posture, and scans the coral once more. There are more shells to crack, more puzzles to see, and in the realm beneath the waves where light bends and color sings, the reef remembers, even the smallest gladiators can strike like thunder. Beneath the endless blue stretch of the open ocean, where there are no shadows to hide in and no reefs to hug, survival becomes a matter of endurance, direction, and pure speed. Here, in the midwater highways far from any coastline, a blur of motion disrupts the tranquil drift of plankton and jellyfish. Schools of flying fish scatter like shrapnel in its wake, fins skimming the surface in panicked arcs. Below them, something faster is coming, sleek, metallic, and relentless. This is not a shark, nor is it a dolphin. It is a bluefin tuna, a missile with muscle, and it is hungry. The Atlantic bluefin, Thunus thinus, can exceed 2 meters in length and weigh more than 1/4 of a ton, yet it moves with the efficiency of a torpedo. Its body is a lesson in hydrodynamic design, a rigid, fusiform frame shaped like a streamlined bullet, with narrow tail peduncles and sickle-shaped fins that lock in place to reduce drag. Every part of its anatomy is designed to cut through water like a blade. Unlike most fish, which flex side to side as they swim, the tuna's motion is concentrated almost entirely in its tail, driven by bands of red muscle that ripple with rhythmic, unyielding force. It is a creature built not just for bursts of speed, but for hours of high-speed pursuit. What sets tuna apart from almost all other fish is something even more unexpected. They're warm-blooded. Unlike cold-blooded species that depend on the temperature of surrounding water, tuna maintain an elevated body temperature through a specialized vascular system known as rete mirabile, Latin for wonderful net. This network of blood vessels acts as a heat exchanger, recycling warmth from outgoing blood to incoming flow, allowing vital organs and muscle tissues to function with high performance even in colder depths. This endothermy is rare in fish, and it grants the tuna superior vision, faster reflexes, and unmatched metabolic efficiency. In the cool, dim zones of the ocean where others slow down, the tuna accelerates. But speed alone isn't the whole story. Tuna are navigators, ocean-spanning travelers who undertake journeys measured in thousands of kilometers. A single Atlantic bluefin might be born in the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, cross the entire Atlantic to feed near the shores of Europe, and return years later to spawn where it began. These migrations aren't random. They're mapped through internal cues, magnetic fields, water chemistry, and temperature gradients that only the tuna can read. Some scientists believe they can detect variations in geomagnetic fields, guiding themselves like living compasses through a vast and directionless sea. Along the way, tuna must avoid an ever-shifting array of dangers: sharks, dolphins, giant squid, and now, most devastating of all, industrial fishing fleets. But tuna are not just prey. They're apex prey, species that sit at the top of the prey hierarchy. They feed on smaller fish, squid, and crustaceans with explosive lunges, turning what looks like graceful swimming into brutal efficiency. Yet they are also relentlessly hunted themselves, by predators and by humans alike, making them a critical hinge in the food web. Remove too many, and entire ocean systems begin to wobble. In tightly packed schools, often numbering in the hundreds, tuna synchronize their movements with eerie precision. There's no leader, no command, just a fluid consensus that seems to ripple from one body to the next. When prey is spotted, the group fans out in a high-speed chase, forming a strike formation that corrals smaller fish into bait balls, where the real carnage begins. Unlike reef hunters that ambush from cover, tuna are open water tacticians, relying on coordination, speed, and relentless stamina to exhaust their quarry. The physiology behind this is extraordinary. Tuna gills are larger than most fish relative to body size, allowing them to extract oxygen at a rapid rate. But they can't stop swimming. Their mouths must remain open as they move forward, forcing water across their gill surfaces in a process known as ram ventilation. Stillness means suffocation. Motion is not just a tactic, it's life. Their hearts, too, are overbuilt. A tuna's heart can beat over 100 times per minute and is supported by a powerful circulatory system that delivers oxygen to muscles in high demand. Combined with their unique muscle arrangement, red muscle along the sides for cruising and white muscle deeper in the body for bursts, the result is a dual-engine system that allows for both marathon endurance and explosive sprinting. But this evolutionary perfection comes at a cost. Because tuna are so efficient, they have become one of the most commercially valuable fish on the planet. A single adult bluefin can fetch tens of thousands of dollars on the Japanese sashimi market, with some specimens auctioned for over $1 million. This has led to catastrophic overfishing. Across the Atlantic and Pacific, populations have crashed by as much as 80% in some regions. Despite international quotas and conservation efforts, illegal fishing and poor enforcement continue to pressure these migrants of the deep. Yet their importance goes far beyond economics. Tuna are environmental indicators, canaries in the coal mine of the open sea. Their migratory routes intersect with changing ocean temperatures, pollution zones, and plankton blooms. When tuna patterns shift, it tells scientists that the ocean itself is shifting. They are not just prey or predator, they are barometers of planetary health. In quieter moments, when the chase is over and the school glides through cobalt silence, they seem like shadows beneath the sun-dappled surface, flickering and pulsing in perfect formation. The play of light on their backs mirrors the ocean itself, calm from above, fierce from below. Their scales shimmer like steel in the sun, hinting at the strength buried beneath that armor. No reef, no cave, no coral bed. Just movement and memory. For the tuna, the ocean isn't a territory to guard, but a highway to conquer. Every migration a testament to evolutionary engineering at its finest. They are neither invincible nor eternal. But while they last, they are among the most advanced biological machines ever to slice through salt water. When one breaks from the pack to accelerate toward its next meal, it moves not with violence, but with purpose, a blur of muscle, blood, and thermal fire. In that moment, the ocean does not ripple, it parts. And then, as fast as it came, the blue missile is gone. Along the silty, sun-dappled bottom of a shallow tropical estuary, life moves slowly, as if the current itself were tired from the morning heat. Silt drifts in lazy plumes as juvenile fish hover near scattered clumps of algae, and gobies stand guard over burrow entrances like miniature sentinels. But something odd shifts near the edge of a seagrass patch, something that wasn't there a moment ago. A flounder glides effortlessly across the sand, fins waving softly. Then, as quickly as it appeared, it blinks out of existence. In its place, a pile of mud stirs, and from it 8 slender arms rise, spread and twist in a motion too fluid to chart. The mimic octopus has dropped the act. There's nothing else like it in the ocean. While other octopuses might change color or texture to blend into coral or rock, the mimic octopus, Thormoctopus mimicus, rewrote the rules of deception. Instead of hiding, it performs. With no ink cloud or frantic escape, it chooses illusion over retreat, adopting the postures, movements, and colors of far more dangerous creatures. One minute it is a venomous lionfish, spines outstretched and fluttering in graceful menace. Another, it stretches 2 arms behind and swims in undulating patterns that eerily resemble a banded sea snake. In some cases, it flattens its body against the sand and sweeps its limbs outward to impersonate a swimming sole or flounder, mimicking both the undulation and the cryptic body posture. This is not a trick performed by reflex or instinct. It's a behavior selected in real time, seemingly based on what predator the mimic octopus believes it's facing. It chooses its disguise, and this decision-making hints at a neural sophistication that's staggering for an invertebrate. Cephalopods are already renowned for their intelligence, but mimicry adds another layer, one that requires observation, memory, spatial awareness, and an uncanny ability to simulate the shapes and behaviors of other species. It's not mimicry as camouflage, it's mimicry as psychological warfare. Their bodies are built for performance, soft, boneless, and highly muscular, An octopus can compress itself through openings no wider than a coin, but in the mimic's case, it's the versatility of movement that truly matters. Each arm contains thousands of muscle fibers and an independent nervous system capable of localized decision-making. In fact, most of the mimic octopus's neurons are not in its brain, but distributed throughout its limbs. This decentralized intelligence allows it to coordinate astonishingly complex limb postures and movements, raising just two arms while curling the rest under its body, for instance, to form the striped silhouette of a sea snake. Meanwhile, chromatophores, tiny pigment sacs embedded in its skin, flash color changes with millisecond precision, allowing the animal to match not only the shape, but the texture and hue of the species it's imitating. What's remarkable is that the mimic octopus evolved not in coral reefs, but in muddy estuarine zones, low visibility, predator-heavy regions of Southeast Asia, especially in the coastal waters of Indonesia and Malaysia. These environments are risky, offering little solid cover and an ever-present audience of hungry fish, eels, and crabs. Hiding isn't always an option, but if you can become something your enemies fear, the battlefield shifts in your favor. Mimicry here isn't about escape, it's about buying psychological space. It's one thing to mimic color or shape, it's another to imitate behavior. The mimic octopus doesn't merely resemble a lionfish, it moves like one. It doesn't just look like a flounder, it swims in the same wave-like motion, hugging the sea floor. When it impersonates a banded sea snake, it doesn't stretch its body like a ribbon. It coils two arms together and undulates them behind itself while burying the rest of its body in sand. These choices aren't random. Sea snakes are known predators of damselfish and triggerfish, two species that frequently harass octopuses. By becoming a predator's predator, the mimic sends a signal that says, "Back off." Unlike the flamboyant display of a cuttlefish or the brute strength of a mantis shrimp, the mimic's survival hinges on precision theater. There's little margin for error. If a predator sees through the ruse, there's no shell, no spines, no speed to fall back on. But the illusion is good. So good, in fact, that even humans observing underwater have had difficulty recognizing it as an octopus at first glance, especially when it performs in the middle of open water with no background to enhance the effect. What drives this ability? It likely evolved from the same survival pressures that drive all mimicry in nature: selective advantage. Individuals that mimicked well were eaten less, survived longer, and passed on their genes. But in the mimic octopus, evolution ran a rare path. Rather than developing a fixed mimicry, like a stick insect or leaf-tailed gecko, it evolved the ability to choose among many mimics. That level of behavioral plasticity is virtually unheard of in animals without backbones. And then there's the social angle. While most octopuses are solitary and shy, the mimic shows a strange curiosity. It has been observed not only performing mimicry, but also using debris as tools, carrying coconut shells or hiding inside bottles on the seafloor. Some individuals seem to test the reactions of nearby fish before choosing a mimicry pattern, adjusting their disguise based on the context. While the science of octopus cognition is still young, such observations challenge old assumptions about invertebrate behavior being purely reflexive or instinctive. Despite its evolutionary genius, the mimic octopus is rarely seen. It lives in silty habitats that are difficult to film and study. Much of what we know comes from fleeting encounters and video footage analyzed frame by frame. Its exact diet remains partially a mystery, though it feeds on small fish, worms, and crustaceans, often using a tactic called arm sweeping, where it flushes prey from sand with its arms and corrals them into its central mouth. It doesn't just hunt, it herds, manipulates, and outsmarts. The mimic's greatest threat is not the predator it impersonates, but the human it cannot. Coastal development, pollution, and rising ocean temperatures threaten its habitat. With no reefs to protect and no iconic status to shield it, the mimic remains overlooked in many conservation conversations. And yet, as a symbol of adaptability and neural innovation, few species tell the story of marine evolution better. In the quiet of the estuary, the mimic octopus folds itself once again into the shape of something else, perhaps a lionfish this time, with fins flared and stripes blazing. It glides across the bottom in perfect imitation, unseen by the snapper watching from the shadows. For now, illusion is enough. No force, no speed, no venom, just the perfect lie told through muscle and light. In the stillness of a Caribbean reef, where sea fans sway gently like undersea willows and parrotfish nibble at coral rubble, a slow, regal silhouette glides just above the seafloor. Its long pectoral fins fan outward like silken drapes, trailing delicate spines that shimmer in the filtered light. Red and white bands ripple across its body in perfect symmetry. It looks like a creature sculpted from elegance and calm. But beauty, in this case, conceals something far more sinister. The lionfish, an invader cloaked in grace, drifts quietly through the reef like a monarch in exile, poisoning the kingdom it now claims. Native to the Indo-Pacific, Pteroa volitans and its close cousin, Pteroa miles, were once found exclusively in the coral-rich waters stretching from Indonesia to the Red Sea. In those ecosystems, lionfish are just another cog in the food web, kept in check by evolved predators, territorial competition, and familiar prey. But sometime in the 1980s, they were introduced, likely through the exotic pet trade, into the waters of the Western Atlantic, most infamously off the coast of Florida. From there, the expansion was breathtaking. Within a few decades, lionfish had spread from North Carolina to Brazil, populating reefs, wrecks, and estuaries with unsettling efficiency. Unlike most invasive species that struggle to adapt to new territories, lionfish thrived. The reasons are a masterclass in biological advantage. First, their venomous spines provide almost complete protection from native predators who have never evolved resistance or strategies to handle them. Each of their 18 spines, 13 along the dorsal ridge, 2 pelvic and 3 anal, contains venom glands capable of delivering a sting that causes extreme pain, swelling, and even tissue necrosis in humans. In fish, the consequences are usually fatal. This venom, distinct from poison because it must be injected, not ingested or absorbed, is a perfect defensive adaptation for a slow-moving hunter. And slow they are. Lionfish don't chase prey, they drift. They float like ghosts, luring in unsuspecting juveniles with the gentle undulation of fins that resemble seaweed or coral branches. When a target draws near, perhaps a juvenile snapper or wrasser, they use their outstretched pectorals to corner the fish, subtly guiding it into a dead end. Then, with a vacuum-like burst, the lionfish gulps the prey whole. There's no struggle, no blood, just disappearance. This predatory technique is terrifyingly effective. In their invaded range, lionfish consume over 50 species of reef fish, many of which are critical to coral reef health. Herbivores like damselfish and parrotfish, species that keep algae in check and allow coral polyps to thrive, are being decimated in areas where lionfish densities are high. The ripple effect is massive. Fewer herbivores mean more algae. More algae means stressed corals, and stressed corals lead to ecosystem collapse. In some documented cases, lionfish have reduced juvenile fish populations by up to 90% on a given reef within just 5 weeks. Their reproductive prowess only accelerates the problem. Lionfish mature in less than a year and can spawn every 4 days, releasing gelatinous egg masses that float with the current. A single female can produce over 2 million eggs annually. These egg masses are chemically defended, discouraging most predators and increasing survivability. Ocean currents then carry the larvae far beyond their release point, spreading the invasion in every direction without the need for the adults to move at all. It's a reproductive engine without brakes. Unlike native predators that face constant pressure, lionfish seem to exist without threat in their invaded waters. Grouper and snapper, large fish that could theoretically eat them, appear uninterested or unsure how to handle their venomous defenses. Even sharks, often seen as opportunistic feeders, show little interest in attacking lionfish in the wild. With no natural checks, their populations balloon unchecked. Artificial reefs and shipwrecks, once hubs of biodiversity, now serve as lionfish nurseries, crowded with spiny silhouettes gliding between rusted beams. What makes the invasion more devastating is the lionfish's versatility. They aren't picky eaters. They hunt at depths from just a few meters down to over 300 feet. They tolerate brackish estuaries, coral reefs, mangroves, and even open ocean ledges. They're generalists in a world full of specialists. Where native species falter under environmental stress, lionfish persist. Scientists and conservationists have turned to creative solutions to combat the invasion. Organized culling events, lionfish derbies, offer rewards for divers who remove as many individuals as possible. Some Caribbean communities have developed a culinary response, promoting lionfish as a delicious, flaky white meat delicacy. Lionfish ceviche, lionfish tacos, and even lionfish sashimi are now part of an eco-friendly movement to create a market-driven solution to their spread. But despite localized successes, the problem persists. The scale is simply too vast. The ocean is too big, and lionfish reproduce faster than most removal efforts can keep pace. Biologically, lionfish are a marvel. They are walking case studies in evolutionary success, armored, toxic, stealthy, and fecund. But outside their native range, they are a biological wildfire, burning through ecosystems that never evolved fire breaks. Their spines are not just weapons, they are symbols of imbalance, of what happens when beauty is allowed to flourish unchecked in the wrong place. The irony is that few invasive species have ever looked so mesmerizing. Their ornate fins and slow, mesmerizing swim patterns captivate divers and underwater photographers. They move with such serenity that it's hard to imagine the chaos they bring. But beneath that facade lies a sobering reality. This is not just a fish. It's a predator sculpted by a foreign sea, set loose in ecosystems that mistake grace for harmlessness. As it drifts over the reef, its spines lightly raking the water behind it, the lionfish does not know that it doesn't belong. It doesn't feel guilt or malice. It simply thrives. That is the cold truth of biology. What survives, spreads. And in the warm blue shallows of the Atlantic, an empire is quietly expanding, crowned not with gold, but with venom. A wall of cold water rises beneath an overcast sky, slate grey and rolling with a slow, steady rhythm. Somewhere off the rocky coastline of Patagonia, a harbour seal pup lingers near the edge of the shore break, oblivious to the hidden line where safety ends and the sea reclaims its own. Beneath the surface, the rhythm breaks. A jet-black dorsal fin cuts through the foam like a periscope. It vanishes almost as quickly as it appeared. Then the ocean itself seems to surge forward, not in the shape of one body, but in a coordinated, purposeful wave. The orca doesn't strike like a shark or lunge like a great cat. It calculates. Beneath the waves, three individuals align in parallel, synchronizing their speed and depth until they form a living battering ram. At the exact moment, they breach the shallows in unison, sending a surge of white water crashing onto the beach, washing the young seal into open surf where escape is impossible. One orca, now fully out of the water and half-beached, clamps its jaws around the stunned pup before twisting back into the sea in a single, practiced roll. It's not just impressive, it's surgical. And it's learned behavior passed down not through instinct, but culture. Orcas, or killer whales, are the largest members of the dolphin family and the ocean's most adaptable apex predators. Ranging from the icy fjords of Norway to the warm lagoons of the tropics, they are globally distributed yet locally specialized. No two orca populations hunt the same way, nor do they sound the same. Each pod is a distinct society with its own dialects, rituals, and learned strategies. This is what separates orcas from other marine predators. They don't merely survive by strength, they dominate through intelligence. The orca brain is massive, second only to the sperm whale in size, and densely folded with an enlarged limbic system. This region, linked to emotion, memory, and social bonding, is more complex in orcas than in almost any other animal, including humans. It gives them the capacity not only to feel and remember, but to teach, imitate, and organize. Observational learning forms the backbone of orca society. Calves don't just grow, they're raised, trained, and inducted into family tactics that have been honed over generations. In the coastal waters of British Columbia, pods known as resident orcas specialize in hunting salmon, particularly the fatty, energy-rich Chinook. Their movements follow salmon runs with uncanny precision. They use echolocation to pinpoint individual fish, clicking rapidly in bursts that bounce back off bones and swim bladders. A successful kill might involve only one orca, or a coordinated drive where others flank the fish into tight formations. But in these communities, social bonds outweigh bloodshed. Orcas will often pass fish to one another, especially to calves or elderly pod members, sometimes breaking their meal into smaller pieces before sharing. For a top predator, they are astonishingly cooperative. Contrast that with the transient or Biggs orcas, who specialize in marine mammals, seals, porpoises, even young whales. These orcas travel in smaller groups and employ stealth rather than sonar. They move in silence, suppressing echolocation to avoid detection, using visual cues and precise timing instead. In Alaska, one pod was observed tracking a group of sea lions for over 2 hours without a single vocalization. When the moment was right, they exploded upward with enough force to launch 300-kilogram sea lions into the air, stunning them before circling in for the kill. This dual identity, one pod singing songs to fish, another stalking silently like submarine assassins, is what makes orcas so formidable. They adapt, not only across generations, but in real time. Even more astonishing are the reports from South Africa and New Zealand, where certain orcas have developed the grisly specialization of preying on large sharks. Great whites, bronze whalers, even stingrays fall victim to a technique so precise it seems anatomical. The orca flips its prey upside down, inducing tonic immobility, a trance-like state in elasmobranches, before delicately extracting the liver with surgical precision, sometimes leaving the rest of the body untouched. Shark livers are rich in squalene, a high-energy compound, and the orcas appear to know this, targeting the organ with an almost unnatural focus. In one incident, 5 great whites washed ashore, each with identical wounds, large, clean incisions near the liver. It's the work not of instinct, but of intelligence refined through trial and passed along through kin. Orcas also communicate with remarkable variation. Each pod maintains its own dialect, a series of whistles, clicks, and pulsed calls unique to its lineage. These vocal signatures can be so specific that researchers have identified individuals by voice alone. In some populations, call complexity is even linked to group size and cohesion. Larger pods tend to have more sophisticated vocal repertoires, possibly to maintain social organization across many individuals. In the southern resident pods of the Pacific Northwest, mothers and grandmothers serve as knowledge keepers, guiding the group not only with experience, but with cultural memory, where fish once ran thick, where danger now looms. In this layered society, matriarchs hold the center. Female orcas live far beyond their reproductive years, with lifespans reaching 80 or 90 years in the wild. Post-reproductive females often lead foraging trips, signal danger, and resolve conflict among younger members. This phenomenon, rare in the animal kingdom, suggests a survival benefit rooted not in breeding, but in wisdom. In human terms, they are grandmothers, teachers, and historians rolled into one. Yet for all their dominance, orcas are vulnerable in ways many don't expect. Pollution, noise from ship traffic, and dwindling prey stocks, especially Chinook salmon, have placed stress on certain populations. Some pods are losing calves at increasing rates, and juveniles are maturing more slowly. Bioaccumulation of toxins like PCBs, concentrated at the top of the food chain, presents a silent threat to these sensitive giants. For a species that relies on memory and cultural continuity, the erosion of habitat and the collapse of fish stocks is more than a problem. It's a loss of knowledge, of ancestral strategy that can't be regained once broken. Still, in the right places, the black wave continues to rise. In Norway's fjords, under the shimmer of the aurora, pods now hunt herring in spirals, herding the silvery shoals into tight balls and stunning them with tail slaps before taking turns to feed. Each move is timed, each strike calculated, a ballet of power and planning, carried out by creatures that understand each other, their environment, and the rules of the game they've mastered. Orcas remind us that in the ocean, dominance isn't always a matter of size or strength. It's about intelligence, memory, and social structure. Theirs is not a reign of terror, but a reign of reason, an apex built not only on predation, but on communication, cooperation, and inherited expertise. They are not monsters of the sea. They are its masterminds. In their wake, the ocean calms again, but the impression remains, a presence just beneath the surface. A force not of hunger, but of intellect, not of chaos, but of control. The black wave retreats, but it never vanishes. It watches, it learns, and when it returns, it will do so with a plan. A faint shimmer glides over the seagrass beds beneath the turquoise swell of a tropical lagoon, where shafts of sunlight bend through salt water and ripple across the sand in soft, rhythmic waves. Coral outcrops cast dappled shadows across the seafloor, and above the reef, schools of damselfish dance in perfect synchronicity. Nothing stirs the water's calm surface, until a long, slender body twists upward in slow, deliberate motion. It breaks the surface just enough to draw a breath of air before folding gracefully back into the depths. To the untrained eye, it might seem like an eel, but there's something unmistakably reptilian in the movement, something ancient. This is Hydrophis, a true sea snake, evolved not just to survive in the ocean, but to rule one of its quietest, deadliest corners. Sea snakes are not an evolutionary novelty. They are a success story. Descended from terrestrial elapid snakes, the same family that includes cobras and kraits, they made their move to the sea millions of years ago. Unlike amphibious sea kraits, which still return to land to lay eggs, the fully aquatic sea snakes never touch land at all. They give birth to live young at sea, slither through coral reefs with eerie precision, and have transformed their very bodies to embrace a liquid world. Their long lungs extend nearly the full length of their bodies, aiding not just in respiration, but in buoyancy control. Their tails have flattened into vertical paddles, evolved not for slithering, but for undulating propulsion. Yet what truly sets these snakes apart is what happens at the cellular level. Unlike most reptiles, sea snakes can breathe partially through their skin. Thin, highly vascularized skin around their bellies allows for a surprising degree of cutaneous respiration. This doesn't replace their need for air. They must still surface to breathe, sometimes every 30 minutes, sometimes after hours of submerged hunting. But the ability to absorb oxygen and release carbon dioxide through the skin offers a crucial edge in long, stealthy foraging dives. In evolutionary terms, it's a bridge. 1 foot in the past, 1 in the future. And this future is lethal. Sea snakes wield some of the most potent venoms in the animal kingdom, composed primarily of neurotoxins, chemical agents that interrupt the nervous system's communication with muscles. When delivered in sufficient dose, paralysis sets in quickly, followed by respiratory failure. In some species, such as Enhydrina schistosa, commonly known as the beaked sea snake, a single bite contains enough venom to kill dozens of humans. Yet fatalities are rare. Sea snakes are shy, retiring predators, striking only when provoked or stepped on, and their fangs, though efficient, are small, less adapted to defend against humans than to immobilize fish, because fish are their primary prey. Unlike land snakes, which often hunt mammals or birds, sea snakes specialize in ichthyophagy, fish eating, and they've evolved accordingly. With forward-facing fangs and a flexible jaw, they can strike with surgical speed, delivering venom that acts fast and without warning. In some cases, they'll probe into reef crevices with their snouts, feeling for movement, or coil silently near schools of gobies and strike in an upward snap. Certain species, like the spine-bellied sea snake, even hunt cooperatively, gathering in massive groups and herding fish into tighter clusters before launching coordinated attacks. The open ocean offers few luxuries, and sea snakes must navigate not just predators and prey, but a physical environment that constantly challenges their design. Saltwater, for instance, presents a problem of osmoregulation. Unlike their freshwater cousins or land-dwelling ancestors, sea snakes constantly risk dehydration. To counter this, they evolved sublingual salt glands, organs tucked beneath their tongues that excrete excess salt directly into the mouth, allowing them to drink seawater safely. It's a subtle but vital adaptation, enabling them to persist in environments that would kill most other reptiles. Their distribution reflects their evolutionary success. Sea snakes dominate the warm coastal waters of the Indian and Pacific Oceans, especially in Australia's northern reefs, Indonesia's archipelagos, and the Andaman Sea. Some species prefer the quiet interiors of estuaries and muddy bays, while others are pelagic, roaming far offshore in the open blue. The pelagic sea snake, Hydrophis platerus, is perhaps the boldest example, rare among reptiles in its total commitment to the high seas. It can drift for thousands of kilometers on surface currents, using slick, flattened scales to resist abrasion and flotation, feeding on small fish and planktonic organisms while navigating the swells like a drifting leaf with a hidden sting. But this lifestyle comes with vulnerability. Sea snakes, despite their venom and stealth, are hunted. Sharks are their most formidable predators, particularly reef sharks and tiger sharks. Birds too pose a risk, especially when snakes surface to breathe near nesting islands. Even some larger fish have been observed attempting to bite or chase down smaller species. Yet their greatest threat today isn't natural, it's incidental. Commercial fishing operations, especially trawling and gill netting, kill tens of thousands of sea snakes each year as bycatch. Pulled from the ocean with the catch and left to suffocate or die of injuries, many never make it back to the water. In some regions, this unintentional harvesting is having measurable impacts on local sea snake populations. Sea snakes have adapted to an environment where almost nothing should work for them. Reptiles, after all, evolved on land, designed to breathe air, move across ground, and soak in heat from the sun. But in the case of the sea snake, evolution didn't just make compromises, it made innovations. These snakes breathe with lungs but stretch them, ventilate through the skin, purge salt through modified glands, and master navigation through sensory refinement. They lack gills, yet vanish underwater for over an hour. They evolved on land, yet birthed a lineage that no longer needs to return. On the reef's edge, as the tide shifts and sunlight filters through rising bubbles, a sea snake twists effortlessly through a maze of coral spires. Its tongue flicks in short, rapid bursts, reading chemical trails left by prey. It weaves past a moray eel's lair, then glides above a sand patch before slipping between two fan corals, body rippling like a banner caught in current. There is no splash, no sound, no drama, just a silent, calculating drift through the realm it has mastered, shedding the memory of dry earth with every breath it takes. In the undercurrent of this quiet predator's presence lies a paradox. It breathes air, but never sees land. It moves like water, but carries a land-born heart. It offers no warning, no display, just the faintest shift in current, the briefest brush of skin, and then the world of fish goes still. The venom current has passed, but the legacy it leaves behind is one of improbable mastery, of a reptile that rewrote the rules and claimed the sea as its own. In the shallows of a sunlit bay, where dappled rays of light scatter through clear Mediterranean waters, the seafloor flickers like a living canvas. Ripples glide across patches of seaweed and crushed coral, and for a moment, everything seems still, until the sand pulses. Not from current or disturbance, but from deception. What appears to be a mound of seagrass suddenly shifts, tightens, and transforms. Arms unfurl with deliberate calm, and a pair of eyes, U-shaped pupils that tilt forward with eerie precision, emerge from the illusion. The cuttlefish has revealed itself, but only because it chooses to. Cuttlefish, members of the class Cephalopoda, are not fish at all. They are mollusks, relatives of squid and octopuses, sheathed in soft bodies and driven by a form of intelligence that evolution rarely grants to creatures without a spine. What sets them apart, even from their cousins, is how they manipulate light and color, not just for camouflage, but for communication, misdirection, and control. Their skin is equipped with a matrix of pigment sacs called chromatophores, each controlled by a tiny ring of muscles. Beneath these lie iridophores and leucophores, layers of cells that reflect and scatter light, creating metallic sheens or ghostly white hues. In less than a second, a cuttlefish can change not only its color, but its entire visual texture, shifting from speckled sand to velvet black, or pulsing electric bands. But this is more than disguise. The cuttlefish's color shifts are tools, used to startle, confuse, and manipulate both predator and prey. While stalking shrimp or small fish, it might flash rhythmic, rippling waves of dark and light across its flanks. These oscillations are not random. They serve a purpose. The flickering can hypnotize the target, freezing it in place just long enough for the final strike. With a sudden lunge powered by its siphon, the cuttlefish extends two feeding tentacles, lightning fast, elastic spears lined with suckers that seize prey in an instant. Once grasped, the meal is drawn toward a beak hidden beneath the arms, where it is shredded with efficiency. In the realm of short-range predators, cuttlefish are tacticians. Their eyesight is astonishingly precise. Each eye operates independently and is specialized for contrast rather than color, detecting the polarization of light, a feature invisible to humans. This grants them the ability to perceive shapes and textures in environments where colors may be useless. They can spot the shimmer of a fish scale buried beneath sand, or the outline of a crustacean against a cluttered coral backdrop. Strangely, despite their complex color manipulation, cuttlefish are thought to be colorblind. They rely not on color vision, but on brightness and pattern recognition, crafting their illusions for those who can see in color. It's as if a deaf musician mastered symphonies only others could hear. Their brain-to-body ratio is among the highest in invertebrates, and they demonstrate impressive feats of memory and learning. Cuttlefish can navigate mazes, remember patterns, and alter behavior based on past experience. In laboratory settings, they've been trained to associate shapes with food, and in the wild, their decisions during hunting or mating reveal flexible, goal-driven thinking. One of the most compelling signs of their intelligence emerges during courtship. Males compete for females using elaborate visual signals, rippling displays of color and posture that shift second by second, like visual Morse code. In some instances, males have been observed using one side of their body to court a female, while displaying female-like patterns on the other side to deceive rival males nearby. It's not aggression or intimidation, it's strategy. These behaviors are facilitated by the cuttlefish's extraordinary control over its body. Every square inch of its skin is programmable. The cuttlefish doesn't just vanish into its environment, it becomes part of it. Against a pebbled seafloor, it will mimic the precise granularity of the rocks. In grassy beds, it takes on striated patterns to echo blades of algae. If startled, it can vanish in a sudden inky cloud, deploying melanin-rich ink that not only obscures its retreat, but chemically interferes with predators' senses. This ink, dense, dark, and slick, contains dopamine and amino acids that may dull the attack reflex of fish or irritate their sensory organs. In a way, the cuttlefish deploys smoke not just to disappear, but to confuse the very minds that pursue it. Yet beneath all this artistry lies something humbler and older. The cuttlefish is encased in a porous internal shell called a cuttlebone, a calcium-rich structure riddled with tiny chambers. By controlling the gas and fluid within these chambers, it adjusts its buoyancy with astonishing precision. It can hover like a drone over coral heads or sink gently to the bottom without a flick of its fins. But this delicate mechanism comes with cost. Too much pressure, too deep a dive, and the cuttlebone can implode. They are creatures of the shallow shelf, bound to sunlit waters and the contours of the continental coast. Their grace is tailored for the mid-depth stage, where their illusions are most effective and their senses can stretch to full advantage. Despite their capabilities, cuttlefish are not long-lived. Most species survive just 1 to 2 years. Their lives burn fast and bright. Reproduction is both climax and conclusion. Mating, though brief, is elaborate. Males guard females from rivals and deposit sperm using a specialized arm. Females lay clusters of eggs in protected crevices, anchoring them to algae or rock. Once the eggs are secure, both parents begin to decline. There is no parental care. The next generation hatches into independence, miniature versions of their parents already equipped with chromatophores and tiny, perfect hunting arms. In many ways, cuttlefish live on the edge of visibility, always present but rarely noticed until they choose to be. Their talent for mimicry is not about deception for deception's sake. It's about survival in a sea that rewards invisibility. But when they reveal themselves, flashing like strobes across the reef, rippling with signals too complex for us to decode, they remind us that intelligence doesn't require bones and communication doesn't require sound. The ocean speaks in pulses and patterns, and the cuttlefish is one of its most fluent translators. As the tide retreats and the angle of the sun shifts, the cuttlefish descends once again into the mosaic of the reef. Its colors fade into sand, its outline blurs, and in a blink, it is gone. What remains is not just the absence of a predator, but the impression of a performance, one of light, behavior, and memory, staged in the silence of the sea. In the still clarity of a tropical lagoon, where the morning sun falls in long beams through the upper layers of turquoise water, everything seems motionless, an illusion of peace. Schools of baitfish shimmer beneath the surface, moving as one, their bodies catching the light like scattered coins. The water is warm and silent. Coral heads rest like fortresses on the sandy floor, and feathery algae sway softly with the current. But something is watching. Just beyond a drift of seagrass, suspended in the water like a spear ready to fly, hovers a predator sculpted by urgency. The barracuda is almost motionless. Its sleek, torpedo-like body gleams silver blue, broken only by faint vertical bars that shimmer and vanish depending on the light. Its fins are taut, its jaw slightly parted, revealing a mouth crowded with long, needle-like teeth, each one sharp enough to cut flesh with a twitch. Its eyes, positioned forward and slightly above the snout, scan without blinking. It does not stalk in the traditional sense. It waits, silent, patient, deliberate. And then, without warning, it vanishes forward, accelerating from standstill to over 60 kilometers per hour in a sudden blur. The baitfish don't scatter so much as erupt in panic, but it's already too late. A flash of silver, a quick twist, a cloud of scales. One fish is missing. Barracudas, especially the great barracuda, Sphaerena barracuda, are solitary sprinters of the reef world. Unlike long-distance chasers like tuna or coordinated pack hunters like dolphins, they are burst predators, ambushers that rely on rapid acceleration and overwhelming force delivered in the blink of an eye. Their muscular bodies are built for this single purpose. The elongated shape, the narrow tailstock, and the powerful forked tail all serve to reduce drag and convert muscle contraction into instant speed. Their pectoral fins are small and held close to the body when striking, minimizing resistance. Like a spear launched from a crossbow, they need only a moment to end a chase. But speed alone is not what makes them deadly. Their jaws, elongated and underslung, house two distinct types of teeth. Along the outer edge are large, fang-like teeth, spaced for penetration, capable of anchoring into struggling prey. Interspersed between are smaller, razor-edged teeth designed to slice. The barracuda doesn't just bite, it shears. A single snap of the jaws can sever a fish in half or gouge deep through flesh and bone. Even unsuccessful attacks often leave prey mortally wounded, bleeding into the water and inviting a second fatal strike. The accuracy of these strikes is not random. Barracudas possess a highly refined sensory system, particularly the lateral line, a series of pressure-sensitive canals running along the length of the body. This system detects vibrations and pressure changes in the water, allowing the barracuda to feel movements even in poor visibility. A school of panicked fish sends out a ripple of information: water displacement, pulsing fins, fleeing currents, and the barracuda reads it like radar. Combined with excellent vision, adapted for low light and bright surface hunting alike, this system allows it to pinpoint exactly where and when to strike, whether at dawn's edge or beneath a storm-darkened sea. Despite their reputation for aggression, barracudas are not mindless attackers. They conserve energy with ruthless efficiency, picking off wounded or isolated fish and rarely chasing beyond a few meters. They are opportunists, not brawlers. On coral reefs, juvenile barracudas often patrol the shallows, darting in and out of structure, using the reef's chaos as both cover and trap. In the open sea, adults sometimes shadow larger predators or human divers, not out of curiosity, but in hope of scavenging leftovers. Their intelligence is understated, often mistaken for boldness, but it's calculation. They are watchers, always measuring risk and reward. Their habitat is just as variable. Barracudas are found from the shallows of mangrove estuaries to the open water beyond drop-offs. They are comfortable cruising above seagrass beds or lurking in the shadows of piers and wrecks. This adaptability makes them especially dangerous in transition zones, places where prey species feel secure. In a coral tunnel or along the edge of a shoal, the barracuda's slender profile can blend with shimmering light, hiding its outline against rippling water columns. When it strikes, it's not just speed that kills, it's timing. Reproduction, though less visible, follows a pattern of mystery and abundance. Barracudas spawn offshore in open water, often in large aggregations. Females release thousands of eggs into the current, where fertilization and development occur with little fanfare. The larvae drift with the plankton, feeding and growing until they reach juvenile size and begin to seek shelter in protected bays and lagoons. Here they face threats from larger predators, including their own kind. Cannibalism is not rare among barracudas, and younger fish learn quickly to be both hunter and hunted. As apex mesopredators, barracudas occupy a crucial role in reef ecology. They help regulate populations of mid-level fish, preventing any one species from dominating and ensuring biodiversity. When present in healthy numbers, they serve as balancing agents, predators that keep ecosystems in check. But they are also sensitive to human impact. Overfishing, habitat degradation, and reef collapse reduce their prey base and push them into unfamiliar areas where their presence sometimes sparks unfounded fear. Barracudas rarely attack humans, and when they do, it's often the result of mistaken identity, a flash of a reflective object, a sudden movement, or a wounded fish nearby. They are not reckless killers. They are precision predators with little tolerance for waste. There is an elegance to their violence, not in the way they kill, but in the way they don't waste effort. Watching a barracuda hover, jaws slightly open, fins barely twitching, body held steady against the drift, is to see patience weaponized. There is no performance, no bluff, only readiness. The moment of action comes without warning, without build-up, and ends as quickly as it began. In a sea filled with brilliance, colorful camouflage, complex tactics, social hunters, the barracuda reminds us of the brutal simplicity of effectiveness. A creature designed not to outsmart or outmaneuver, but to outpace. It doesn't need venom, deception, or strategy beyond the geometry of speed and bite. In its world, those who hesitate lose. Those who hesitate bleed. As the sun climbs higher, the lagoon seems to settle again. The school of baitfish regathers, tightens, adjusts. Somewhere beyond the frame, the barracuda has returned to stillness. Its silhouette faded into light, its breath slow, its jaws quietly waiting. It will not chase shadows. It will not make noise. It is already close enough. The seafloor is quiet beneath the lazy motion of the tide, a terrain of pale sediments and coral rubble shaped by centuries of water and time. Sunlight filters down in broad, dappled rays, muted by depth and suspended particles, casting an almost dreamlike glow across the bottom. It is neither chaotic nor silent. Tiny crustaceans flicker between rock crevices. Brittle stars pull themselves along with the slow rhythm of patience. And somewhere off camera, the steady crackle of a distant snapping shrimp breaks the underwater stillness like popcorn. In the midst of this subtle world, a peculiar shape moves with surprising purpose. Fat, slow, and unassuming. The sea cucumber does not hunt, it does not chase, it does not flee. It simply inches forward, tube feet gripping the substrate as it drags itself like a walking sausage over the seabed. But what it lacks in flair, it more than makes up for in function. This is Holothuria, a genus among hundreds in the class Holothuroidea, and what it's doing is more important than it looks. With its feathery tentacles, the sea cucumber scoops sand and detritus into its mouth and ingests it whole, filtering out organic particles, bacteria, decaying matter, microscopic algae, before ejecting the cleaned grains from its rear. In doing so, it performs one of the ocean's most critical services. It recycles the seafloor. Unlike grazers that pluck specific food items or scavengers that target dead flesh, sea cucumbers are indiscriminate sifters. A single large individual can process several dozen kilograms of sediment in a year, reworking and aerating the seafloor in the same way earthworms fertilize terrestrial soil. And like earthworms, their impact is far-reaching. Their constant turnover keeps oxygen flowing into lower sediment layers, supports microbial life, and prevents the buildup of decaying material that would otherwise choke coral and sponge colonies. In reefs, seagrass beds, and the deep sea alike, they are the quiet janitors, organisms that hold systems together not with drama, but with reliability. Biologically, sea cucumbers are a paradox. Their bodies are soft, almost entirely composed of water, and yet they possess a unique ability to manipulate their texture. A network of collagen fibers in their dermis can be stiffened or relaxed at will, allowing them to change from jelly-like to firm and rigid depending on need. Some species use this trick to wedge themselves into narrow crevices for protection. Others exploit it for locomotion, stiffening their bodies just enough to propel forward with peristaltic waves, while using hundreds of tiny suction feet for grip. These adaptations give them surprising mobility across a range of surfaces: mud, coral, rock, or open sand. But when mobility fails, their most unusual defense reveals itself. Under threat, typically from fish, sea stars, or crabs, certain species eject their internal organs through the anus in a process known as evisceration. In one violent contraction, the sea cucumber spills part of its digestive tract, along with sticky threads laced with toxins, into the water. The expelled mass tangles and confuses the attacker, buying the cucumber enough time to escape, or more likely, just lie there and hope the distraction works. Remarkably, within days to weeks, the missing organs regenerate. Intestines, respiratory trees, and even parts of the cloaca are reformed with precision, as if rebuilt from memory. This grotesque tactic is effective, though energy-intensive, and it's not the only line of defense. Many sea cucumbers produce saponins, soap-like toxins that deter predators and foul the water around them. These compounds, while not fatal to all species, can disrupt cell membranes and irritate fish gills, giving the cucumber an edge in the murky politics of the reef. It's chemical warfare, played out silently and slowly, between creatures that most divers never even notice. Their anatomy reflects their lineage as echinoderms, close relatives of starfish and sea urchins. They have pentaradial symmetry, a trait inherited from their evolutionary roots, although it's often obscured by their elongated shape. Inside, a water vascular system drives their tube feet and tentacle movements, allowing them to maintain coordination without centralized intelligence. They have no brain, only a nerve ring and radial nerves that guide sensation and response. Yet despite this simplicity, they are attuned to subtle shifts in current, chemical cues in the water and vibrations from passing animals. They move slowly, but with awareness. Some sea cucumbers live in the abyss, thousands of meters below the surface, where sunlight never reaches, and the only light is from bioluminescent flashes. Here they take on bizarre shapes, gelatinous, transparent, balloon-like, and float just above the sediment, feeding as they drift. Others, in tropical shallows, are bolder, dark-bodied with bright warning colors, or armored with microscopic ossicles that form leathery plates under the skin. Their diversity is staggering, with over 1,700 known species and likely many more undiscovered in deep ocean basins. Beyond their ecological role, sea cucumbers have long been harvested by humans. In many Asian cultures, particularly Chinese and Southeast Asian cuisine, certain species are dried and eaten as a delicacy known as bêche de mer or trepang. This has led to heavy exploitation, especially in areas where coastal communities depend on them for income. In some regions, overharvesting has caused population crashes, leading to declines in sediment quality and reef health. Conservationists now recognize sea cucumbers not just as curiosities, but as essential players in ecosystem stability, keystone species whose absence would quietly unravel the seafloor's balance. Even their reproduction is a marvel of coordination. Most species release sperm and eggs into the water column, where fertilization occurs externally. Spawning is often synchronized with lunar cycles, tidal shifts, or chemical signals, mass releases that increase the odds of success. The larvae are planktonic, drifting and developing before settling to the bottom and transforming into their adult form. In some species, however, reproduction is more direct. Hermaphrodites self-fertilize or brood their young internally, revealing just how flexible these ancient animals have become in their reproductive strategies. On a living reef, the sea cucumber is easy to overlook. Divers swim past them, fish dart around them, even predators hesitate to engage. But without them, the rhythm of the reef falters. Organic debris builds, sediment hardens, algae encroach, and soon, the intricate balance between coral, sponge, and invertebrate begins to break. They may not chase or kill, but in their quiet, deliberate march across the bottom, sea cucumbers shape the very stage upon which marine life performs. In the final minutes of sunlight, as shadows lengthen across the reef and the first night creatures begin to stir, the cucumber continues its work. Mouth brushing sediment, tentacles probing, guts slowly coiling through a day's worth of debris. It is neither elegant nor glamorous, but its value is beyond measure. In the world beneath the waves, the janitor never stops cleaning, and for that, the ocean keeps breathing. The ocean does not speak in words. It speaks in currents, in temperature gradients, in layers of pressure that shift and fold across thousands of kilometers. It speaks through movement, of predators stalking their prey, of larvae drifting on unseen highways, of chemical signals exchanged silently between coral polyps and cleaning shrimp. It speaks through adaptation and balance, refined not over decades but over millions of years. If you listen closely, not with ears but with observation, with understanding, you begin to recognize the language. And what it tells us is this: everything is connected. From the moment a mantis shrimp coils its clawed arm in the rubble of a reef, to the flash of a tuna knifing through open blue water, the ocean's design is not chaos, but choreography. Each animal we followed plays a part in this elaborate system of checks and balances, predators and prey, camouflage and communication. The mimic octopus vanishes into a lionfish illusion, not just to survive, but because it has learned, over evolutionary time, that deception is more reliable than speed. The lionfish, in turn, becomes a villain not by nature but by relocation, its venom and elegance out of place in a reef unprepared for its methods. The orca coordinates with its kin across fjords and ice fields, speaking in dialects, hunting with tactics passed through generations. It isn't just a killer, it's a culture bearer. Each chapter of this underwater world introduces a new strategy, adaptations shaped by ancient forces. Speed becomes a weapon in the barracuda, a blur that leaves only shredded scales in its wake. Precision becomes paramount for the cuttlefish, which communicates with skin and strikes with intention. The sea snake retools an air-breathing body for the liquid realm, slipping between worlds, half reptile, half phantom. Meanwhile, the sea cucumber, with no bite, no sting, and no sprint, simply eats the ocean's waste, quietly sustaining the foundation on which coral ecosystems rely. And beneath all of it, the pattern repeats, complexity that arises not from dominance, but from interdependence. The orca cannot exist without herring. The herring cannot spawn without currents. The currents cannot move without wind and temperature. The coral reef cannot survive without herbivorous fish. Those fish cannot grow without invertebrates, filtering and grazing and turning over the sand. The sea is not a place of isolated gladiators. It is a web, one that bends and shifts, but only so far before it tears. What unites these marine lives is not just their diversity, but the toolkit they draw from. Evolution's quiet, persistent sculpting. Shape, color, muscle, behavior, venom, intelligence. These are the paints with which nature builds. But what it builds is never redundant. The same ocean that gave rise to the explosive strike of the mantis shrimp also gave us the gliding grace of the cuttlefish, the brute simplicity of the barracuda, and the ancestral patience of the sea cucumber. Each is a solution to the same question. How do you survive here? In water, without warmth, without certainty, surrounded by things that want to eat you or beat you to the next meal? The answer is written not in aggression, but in innovation. Some developed speed, others mimicry. Some gave up the need for shells or skeletons. Others hardened their skin with spines and toxins. And some simply dug in and filtered the world, taking whatever passed through their tentacles. There is no single path. Only the truth that no species exists alone. Even the apex predator, sleek and intelligent, falls when its food chain collapses beneath it. But in recent decades, the balance has shifted. Human activity has begun to rewrite the choreography. Overfishing, habitat destruction, warming seas, acidification. These are not abstract threats. They are disruptions with names and consequences. Tuna no longer migrate as freely when entire populations are exhausted. Coral reefs bleach when the water warms by a single degree. Sea cucumbers vanish from overharvested reefs, and the sediment begins to stagnate. The web starts to fray at the edges. Still, the ocean endures, for now. Marine ecosystems have resilience but not infinite patience. They can adjust to storms, to predation, even to minor disturbances. But they cannot outrun collapse. Evolution doesn't work on the scale of decades. It doesn't rebuild what we tear down in a single trawling season or industrial accident. If the last current turns toxic, if the breeding grounds dry up, if the nursery bays fill with plastic and oil, there will be no predators left to study. Only silence. And yet, there is hope. Because the ocean, for all its scale and mystery, responds to recovery. Marine reserves work. Coral restoration efforts, while small, can rebuild damaged patches of reef. Local fishing bans allow species like the lionfish to be controlled and sea turtle populations to rebound. Even misunderstood creatures, sharks, rays, eels, begin to return when given room. Conservation is not a poetic idea. It's measurable, tangible. It is science applied with urgency and humility. The final lesson is not one of fear, but of recognition. Recognition that intelligence isn't limited to animals with fur or familiar faces, that a reef of tentacled, jawed, swimming, slithering, shape-shifting creatures is not just beautiful, it's functional. It teaches us that survival is often quiet, that strength may look like patience, and that the smartest thing in the ocean may be an animal with no bones and no voice, cleaning up after others. As the tides pull and shift around the planet, the last current moves through trenches and reef passes, through mangroves and lagoons, carrying more than water. It carries memory of migrations that trace the same ancient paths, of predators that learn from their mothers, of prey that evolve to outwit them, and of species that survive by fitting in rather than standing out. The ocean does not forgive carelessness, but it rewards attention. So the next time you peer beneath the surface, whether through a mask, a camera lens, or a satellite feed, remember what moves there. Not just animals, but systems, Not just battles, but strategies. And not just predators and prey, but a network of lives bound together by the most powerful force in nature, connection. In that silence, in that drift, in the rhythm of fin, light and sand, the ocean is still speaking. It's up to us to finally understand what it's been trying to say.